This is the Learn It information for week 4 of Fix It 4, Shere Khan and Mowgli. We're going to be adding this week a new part of speech that you're going to be marking when you do the mark it on yours. It's an adjective, and we'll learn some nuanced stuff about it. But an adjective basically is a word that describes a noun or a pronoun. A lot of times you'll find it between an article and the noun, but not always. It typically comes before the noun that it describes, or it can also come after a linking verb. Remember, that's the is, am, are. So if I said like the teacher was enthusiastic, the linking verb is linking the noun to the adjective here, but enthusiastic is the adjective. We're also going to be thinking about possessive adjectives. Those are the words that show ownership. The reason why this is important is there are the words that up until now we may have marked as a noun or a pronoun, and we will be marking those as adjectives now because they're functioning in the sentence as adjectives. So when you have a noun like dog, and it's the dog's bowl, you have an apostrophe S. That word dogs is now an adjective. It's functioning as an adjective describing a noun. So we'll mark that as an adjective. And the same is true for our possessive pronouns. That's things like his dog, her mother, its belt, my book, your car, our house, their pancakes, so those possessive pronouns are pronouns, but they're functioning as adjectives. And so we're going to mark them as adjectives. The next thing we're going to be marking is a clause. It's a dependent clause, but it's a clause called a who, which clause. And we will, some of you know them already if you're familiar with IEW, but this is a group of words with a subject and a verb. Usually the subject is the who or the which, but not always. A who which clause is an adjective clause, which means you use it to describe, to give us more information about a noun that comes right before it. So, and then to know when you use who and when you use which. You use who if you're talking about people, animals that are behaving like people, like in a story, or pets. And you use which when referring to animals, things, or places. And again, remember the subject of the who which clause is very often the pronoun who or which, but it's not always. So you want to be paying attention. Just if you just find the verb and say who did such and such, it'll become pretty obvious. And then there are rules about commas with who which clauses. Adjective clauses, like a who which clause, can be either essential or non-essential. Non-essential means it can be taken out of the sentence and you still have a complete sentence that makes sense. You haven't drastically changed the meaning. It's just giving you a little bit more information about that noun. An essential clause is one where you don't know which one. It's helping tell us which one specifically it is that you're talking about of that noun. So you don't know, your sentence doesn't have the meaning, your sentence doesn't have the same meaning if you take it out of the sentence. I'm just going to mention that right now because for the next, 12 lessons, 14 lessons, all of the who which clauses you're going to see will be non-essential. You'll see we'll be able to pull them out of the sentence. So because they're non-essential, you separate them with commas. And then we're going to be paying attention to quotation marks and the punctuation that goes with that. This is on page 20 in your book, but quotation marks just indicate words that are spoken. So you have them around the quoted material, the parts that were spoken. The attribution is the part of the sentence that tells the person who is speaking and the speaking verb. So if I said, let's see. But this happens all the time. You make me so happy, the boy told his mother. Okay, this part in the quotes, that's our quote. This part, the boy told, that's the attribution. For capitalizations, first word in your quoted material, whether the attribution comes first or afterwards, because you could also say this the other way. Okay, so You capitalize the first word in the sentence, and then you capitalize the first word in the quoted material. But if the attribution comes after the quote, you don't capitalize the first word of the attribution. That's a common mistake students make, so pay extra attention to that. Also, you separate the attribution, whether it's beginning, the beginning in the sentence or at the end of the sentence, you separate it from the quote with a comma. If you have a question, a question mark would replace this. Let's say, do you make me happy? We could say, or do you want pie? How about that? Okay, here the attribution follows. This is an end punctuation mark here. Do you want pie? Because it's a question, but we still don't capitalize this because the attribution is coming at the end of the sentence, if that makes sense. But I would say the boy told his mother, or he would say he asked his mother. And the same would be true of an exclamation mark. You still separate it with a comma here, but here the comma is replaced with the correct end punctuation for that sentence, if it's an exclamation mark or a question mark. Then we have this whole thing. You've got a big chart on page 20 about pronoun agreement. The thing you're going to be looking for is there's things you're going to have to fix. You're going to have usage errors where it's a pronoun is not agreeing with its antecedent. They have to agree in number. Is it singular or plural? They have to agree in person, first person, second person, or third person. Is it the speaker, the one spoken to, or the one spoken about? That's first person and first, second, and third. And case, how is it being used in the sentence? Is it the subject of the sentence? Is it an object, like a direct object, indirect object, or object of a preposition? And is it a possessive pronoun? So, and the possessives can function as adjectives and pronouns. So you got to make sure you look at what noun is it being replaced, and then how is it being used in this clause? And so it has to agree that way. And then that's all for this week. It's kind of a lot because we're adding it to all the other things that we're marking. So go ahead, pay extra close attention to those, get them edited, and then we'll come back together in class and go over it to make sure you've captured everything.